Built-in type. Context manager types. Python's with statement supports the concept of runtime context defined by a context manager. This is implemented using a pair of methods that allow user defined classes to define a runtime context that is entered before the sum statement body is executed and exited when the statement ends. Context manager dot underscore underscore enter method enter the runtime context and return either this object or another object related to the runtime context. The value returned by this method is bound to the identifier in the as close with as close of with statements using this context manager. An example of a context manager that returns itself is a file object. File objects return themselves from underscore underscore enter underscore underscore method to allow open to be used as the context expression in a with statement. An example of a context manager that returns a related object is the one returned by decimal dot local context. This manager set the active decimal context to a copy of the original decimal context and then return the copy. This allows changes to be made to the current decimal context in the body of the with statement without affecting code outside the with statement. Context manager dot underscore underscore exit underscore underscore method parameters are exec underscore type colon comma exec underscore value comma exec underscore tb. Exit the runtime context and return a boolean flag indicating if any exception that occurred should be suppressed. If an exception occurred while executing the body of the with statement, the arguments contain the exception type, value, and traceback information. Otherwise, all three arguments are none. Returning a true value from this method will cause the with statement to suppress the exception and continues execution with the statement immediately following the with statement. Otherwise, the exception continues propagating after this method has finished executing. Exceptions that occur during execution of this method will replace any exception that occurred in the body of the with statement. The exception passed in should never be re-raised explicitly. Instead, this method should return a false value to indicate that the method completed successfully and does not want to suppress the raised exception. This allows context management code to easily detect whether or not an exit method has actually failed. Python defines several context managers to support easy thread synchronization, prompt closure of files or other objects, and simpler manipulation of the active decimal arithmetic context. The specific types are not treated specially beyond their implementation of the context management protocol. See the context lib module for some examples. Python's generators and the context lib.context manager decorator provide a convenient way to implement these protocols. If a generator function is decorated with the context lib.context manager decorator, it will return a context manager implementing the necessary enter and exit methods rather than the iterator produced by an undecorated generator function. Note that there is no specific slot for any of these methods in the type structure for Python objects in the Python or C API. Extension types wanting to define these methods must provide them as a normal Python as accessible method. Compared to the overhead of setting up the runtime context, the overhead of a single class dictionary lookup is negligible. Let's see the examples which are present in context lib. Context leaves utilities with statement. Context leave context utility dot py. Where are the examples? Okay. From context leave import context manager. Managed resource. This with managed resources timeout is equal to as resource. You can go through these examples.